What happens when world leaders become targets instead of protectors? Heads of State reveals a dangerous game of power, secrets, and survival only on Real Signal Studio. Heads of State is a 2025 action comedy movie directed by Ilya Naishuller. The film features Idris Elba playing the role of the British Prime Minister and Cena as the President of the United States. The story focuses on these two powerful world leaders who are suddenly forced to work together when they become the main targets of a dangerous foreign enemy. Even though they come from different backgrounds and have very different personalities, they must join hands to survive and stop the threat facing them. Along with the lead actors, the movie also includes a strong supporting cast. Priyanka Chopra appears in an important role, while Quaid, Paddy Considine, Stephen Root, and Carla Gugino play key supporting characters that add depth, action, and humor to the story. The movie was released worldwide on July 2, 2025. It was distributed by Amazon MGM Studios and made available for streaming on Prime Video, allowing audiences around the world to watch the film from home. A joint team made up of MI6 agents and CIA officers is operating in Buenos Spain. During the famous La Tomatina festival, the team is led by senior agent Noel Bissett. Their mission is to capture Viktor Gradov, a dangerous Russian arms dealer. Bissett's team includes agents Thomas Cooper, Jax, and Francis. During the operation, Gradov appears at the festival but uses several decoys to confuse the agents. Unable to identify the real Gradov, Bissett requests access to Echelon so they can track him in real time. Gradov proves to be smarter than the agents. His men ambush the team, killing Bissett's fellow agents and stealing a link to Echelon. Echelon is a powerful global surveillance system used by intelligence agencies such as the CIA and MI6. It is part of the Five Eyes Alliance and is only allowed to be used in extreme situations under strict supervision. The system can monitor and collect data from all over the world, including phone calls, radio messages, emails, faxes, and other forms of communication. At the same time, Sam Clarke, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is hosting a state visit from Will Derringer, the newly elected President of the United States. Will is a former action movie star who has recently entered politics. He is married to Kat and has a daughter named Sawyer. Sam and Will immediately clash. Will is upset because Sam publicly supported his political opponent during the election. Sam, on the other hand, does not take Will seriously because of his background in movies. Their disagreement turns into a public argument in front of reporters. When asked about the failed operation in Spain, Sam denies that Echelon even exists. Will, however, boldly claims that the US and UK have advanced technology capable of finding and destroying any enemy. It is also revealed that Will never served in the special forces and only trained with them for movie roles, while Sam is a former British Army officer with real military experience. Their senior aide Dessa Quincy from Downing Street and Bradshaw from the White House suggest that the two leaders travel together to the upcoming NATO summit in Trieste aboard Air Force One to show unity. Although reluctant, Sam and Will agree. Even during the flight, the tension continues. Sam looks down on Will as a shallow celebrity, while Will believes Sam is arrogant and thinks he is better than everyone else. Sam explains that he is self-made. He grew up in public housing, worked multiple jobs to afford Cambridge University, served in the army, worked in community organizing, became a defense attaché till the copyright, entered parliament, and eventually became prime minister. He accuses Will of becoming president simply because a Hollywood agent liked his appearance, pointing out that Will has no real history of public service. While in flight, Air Force One is attacked by Gradov's terrorists. One of the attackers is secretly disguised as a chef on a plane. He breaks into the command area, kills the security agents, and activates a tracking beacon. Soon after, a hostile military aircraft fires missiles at Air Force One, bringing it down. Sam and Will manage to escape using parachutes but crash land in Belarus. The world believes they are dead. Sam wants to follow CIA instructions and quietly make his way to Poland without contacting anyone. Will wants to call his wife and tell the world they are alive. Sam argues that their enemies are likely monitoring all communications and throws Will's phone into the water. Back in the United States, Vice President Elizabeth Kirk takes temporary control as president. She is given access to Echelon, but during a system reboot, Gradov and his hacker Hammond use their stolen link to seize control of the entire network. Realizing that someone close to them has betrayed them, Sam and will hitch a ride with a friendly Belarusian woman and travel to Poland. They take shelter with CIA officer Marty Kummer in Warsaw. However, with control of Echelon, Gradov easily tracks them using security cameras. Kummer tells them that Gradov has leaked classified documents online. These documents reveal how NATO countries have secretly spied on one another and interfered in global politics for years, including elections. This causes massive distrust within NATO. Will wants to report to the U.S. Embassy, but Sam insists that all major command centers may already be compromised. Gradov sends assassins Sasha and Olga to attack the safe house. During the assault, Kummer is shot in the head. Sam and will escape with the help of Noel Bissett, who survived the earlier attack in Spain. Bissett explains that the NATO summit has been thrown into chaos because Hammond hacked Echelon and leaked sensitive files. Will also learns that Sam and Bissett were once in a relationship before Sam entered politics. Bissett reveals that Gradov's son was a brilliant scientist who was developing a revolutionary nuclear reactor that could not melt down. To test it, he needed plutonium, which his father obtained illegally. The US and UK believed the plutonium was meant for a weapon and approved a NATO strike that killed Gradov's son. Later, they discovered the truth about the reactor and secretly stole its designs through Echelon, presenting it as an American invention. The three travel by train toward Italy for the NATO summit but are attacked again by one of Gradov's assassins. Hammond, exhausted from being forced to work for Gradov, kills the assassin but is badly wounded. Before dying, he warns Bissett that Gradov has a team waiting at the next station to kill the two leaders. He directs them to his old office in Zadar, Croatia, to find the traitor. There, they uncover old chat records that point to Bradshaw as the betrayer. Gradov attacks again, and Sam appears to be killed in a massive explosion. Gradov captures a shipping container holding Will and Bissett and lifts it with a helicopter, later dropping it, believing both leaders are dead. However, Will and Bissett escape by jumping out before the drop. Afterward, Gradov's own assassins turn on him, as he is no longer needed. Gradov kills them and escapes. Will and Bissett reach Trieste and discover the real traitor is Vice President Elizabeth Kirk, who framed Bradshaw. Will asks Kirk to send a car, but when it arrives, an assassin is already inside. Olga and Sasha chase Will and Bissett through the city. They are saved by Sam, who survived the explosion and drove from Croatia to Italy in a fire truck. During the chase, Olga is killed when her grenade launcher explodes by accident. The trio reaches the NATO summit just in time to stop Kirk from destroying the alliance. Derringer confronts her, but Gradov shoots and kills her as his forces attack the summit. Bissett kills Sasha, while Sam and Will chase Gradov. The final confrontation ends when Sam throws a statue at Gradov's helicopter, causing it to crash and killing him. 2 months later, NATO relations have been repaired, and Sam and Will have become close friends. Marty Kummer is revealed to have survived the gunshot thanks to a metal plate in his head. In the final scene, Bissett finds Kummer at a bar while he is unsuccessfully trying to flirt with women. The casting for Heads of State 2025 began with the project's initial announcement in October 2020, when Amazon Studios acquired the rights to the action comedy script, attaching Idris Elba and Cena as the lead stars. This early commitment set the tone for a high-profile ensemble, drawing on the duo's prior collaboration in The Suicide Squad 2021, to leverage their on-screen chemistry for a buddy dynamic between the UK Prime Minister and the US President. Elba, known for his commanding presence in roles like Stringer Bell in The Wire and his portrayal of complex authority figures in films such as Beasts of No Nation and the Hobbs Shaw spin-off, was envisioned as Sam Clarke, the sophisticated yet battle-hardened British leader with a military background. His casting reflected a deliberate choice to infuse the character with gravitas and charisma, allowing for moments of dry wit amid the chaos of international intrigue. Cena, transitioning from WWE's superstar to Hollywood leading man with successes in Trainwreck, Blockers, and the Fast Furious franchise, brought his everyman appeal and physical prowess to Will Derringer, the former action movie star turned POTUS. This role played to Cena's strengths in self-deprecating humor and over-the-top action sequences, capitalizing on his real-life persona as a likable, larger-than-life figure who could convincingly portray a politician out of his depth in a global conspiracy. The project's momentum built in October 2022 with the hiring of director Ilya Naishuller, whose work on Nobody, 2021, demonstrated a flair for kinetic action blended with humor, aligning perfectly with the film's tone. Naishuller's involvement likely influenced subsequent casting decisions, emphasizing performers who could handle both comedic timing and high-stakes fight choreography. By April 2023, Priyanka Chopra Jonas was added to the cast, marking a significant expansion of the ensemble and bringing international star power to the production. Chopra Jonas, a global icon with credits in Bollywood blockbusters like Dawn and Hollywood ventures such as Baywatch and The Matrix Resurrections, was cast as Noel Bissett, a no-nonsense senior MI6 agent who serves as the pragmatic glue holding the mismatched heads of state together. Her selection was apt given her proven track record in action-oriented roles, where she often embodies strong, multifaceted women capable of delivering both emotional depth and physical intensity. This casting choice also enhanced the film's appeal in diverse markets, leveraging Chopra Jonas's massive following in India and beyond to broaden its commercial reach. Following Chopra Jonas's attachment, the supporting cast was fleshed out in May 2023 with the wave of announcements that included Paddy Considine, Stephen Root, Carla Gugino, Jack Quaid, Sarah Niles, and Richard Coyle. Considine, acclaimed for his nuanced performances in The Outsider and House of the Dragon, took on the role of the Viktor Gradov, the antagonistic Russian arms dealer whose schemes drive the plot's central conflict. His casting brought a layer of menace tempered with eccentricity, drawing from his history of portraying morally ambiguous characters with depth and subtlety. Root, a veteran character actor with memorable turns in Office Space, Barry, and The Man in the High Castle, was selected for Arthur Hammond, Gradov's tech-savvy hacker sidekick. Root's ability to infuse quirky humor into supporting roles made him ideal for providing comic relief amid the film's more intense sequences, his deadpan delivery expected to contrast sharply with the lead's bombast. Gugino, known for her versatile work in Gerald's Game, The Haunting of Hill House, and action films like Spy Kids, was cast as Elizabeth Kirk, the U.S. vice president who navigates the political fallout from the president's escapades. Her inclusion added a strong female presence in the upper echelons of the narrative, allowing for explorations of power dynamics and loyalty within the American administration. Quaid, rising star from The Boys and Scream, 2022, landed the part of Marty Kummer, a CIA officer stationed in Warsaw whose involvement pulls the protagonist's deeper into the conspiracy. Quaid's youthful energy and comedic chops, honed in ensemble-driven projects, positioned him as a bridge between the film's action heroes and its bureaucratic underbelly. Niles, recognized from Ted Lasso and I May Destroy You, portrayed Simone Bradshaw, the White House chief of staff, bringing sharp wit and organizational prowess to a role that demands quick thinking under pressure. Coyle, with credits in Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore and Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, was chosen for Quincy Harrington, the Downing Street chief of staff, his British authenticity lending credibility to the UK side of the political intrigue. The casting department, led by Sophie Holland and John Papsidra, both CSA members, played a pivotal role in assembling this diverse group. Holland, with experience on projects like The Witcher and Shadow and Bone, focused on European talent, while Papsidra, known for The Batman, 2022, and Oppenheimer, brought his expertise in sourcing American actors for high-concept films. Assisted by Sarah Short and extras casting by Lucia Carlotti, the team ensured a blend of established stars and emerging talents, with an eye toward inclusivity and international appeal. This approach was evident in the selection of actors like Charlton Copley as Thomas Coop Cooper, a CIA counterpart to Bissett, whose South African roots and action credentials from District 9 and Hardcore Henry complemented Naishuller's directorial style. Copley's casting added another layer of global flavor, his improvisational skills likely encouraged during filming to enhance the film's body cop elements. Clara Foster, a theatre veteran with screen roles in The Crown and Lame is A. Copyright Rabels, 2012, was brought on as Kat Derringer, the First Lady, providing a grounded emotional anchor for Cena's character. Her selection underscored the production's commitment to authentic British talent for UK-centric roles. Claudia Admit, from The Boys and Timeless, appeared in an unnamed cameo, her familiarity with Quaid from shared projects adding potential for inside jokes or subtle nods. Dan Abrams, playing himself as the host of Dan Abrams Live, was a meta-choice to incorporate real-world media commentary, blurring lines between fiction and reality in the film's satirical take on politics. Beyond the principals, the ensemble included Alexander Kuznetsov, billed as Alexander Kuznetsov, as Sasha the Killer, a formidable antagonist whose physicality and intensity were key to the film's action set pieces. Kuznetsov, with roots in Russian cinema and appearances in The Scythian and Fantastic Beasts, was cast to embody the cold efficiency of a hired assassin, his bilingual abilities aiding in multicultural scenes. Daria Charashah, as Dosha Charashah, played Agent Peters, bringing musical and acting talents from her Russian background to a supporting intelligence role. Andrei Demantiev, as Andrei Demantiev, as the Gopnik leader, and Nikolay Zotev, as Zotev. Nikolay, as Smoking Gopnik added gritty, street-level threats, their casting reflecting location scouting in Eastern Europe. Uncredited and smaller roles further enriched the world building, with Patrice Bevins as a press corps reporter capturing the media frenzy, Lisa Balbiscaldi as an Italian reporter for international flavor, and Ruth Clarson as a camerawoman highlighting behind-the-scenes chaos. Stuart Cook appeared in crowd scenes, while Jean Pascal manned as a NATO aide underscored the film's geopolitical stakes. Johnny Holland as the Prime Minister of Latvia and Brendan Newhouse as the presidential aide filled out diplomatic ensembles, with Nico Anford as the Prime Minister's aide providing administrative support. Patrick Poletti as a news anchor delivered exposition, and Sophie Schleicher as the President of Iceland added diversity to heads of state portrayals, and Mark Sloan as the Danish head of state, UN, emphasized multilateralism. Cameron Crowe-Stone voiced a multilingual NATO delegate. Connor Thompson as a press photographer captured visual media. Lucia Drakova-Mikanova as an echelon analyst handled tech elements, John Winnington as a president's aide mirrored UK counterparts, Poppy Townsend Dwight as a child in the crowd brought innocence to tense moments, and Daniel Joseph Wolfe as a UN delegate rounded out global representations. Douglas Robson, as Doug Robson, and Alan Gill, as Alan Gill, as Gradov's bodyguards provided muscle for the villain's entourage, their physical build suited for action confrontations. Katrina Durden, though not listed in main credits, was noted in some sources as Olga the Killer, her martial arts background from Doctor Strange and the Batman making her a fitting adversary. The overall casting strategy for heads of state prioritized a mix of star power, genre expertise, and cultural authenticity to support its globe-trotting narrative. Elba's authoritative demeanor paired with Cena's affable strength created a core dynamic that echoed classic body films like Lethal Weapon, while Chopra Jonas's addition elevated the action heroine archetype. Supporting players like Considine and Root added villainous flair, with Gugino and Quaid contributing to the ensemble's balance of humor and tension. The casting director's efforts in sourcing talent from various backgrounds ensured the film's satirical edge on international politics resonated universally, with minor roles enhancing the immersive world. Reviews post-release praised the ensemble's chemistry, noting how the choices amplified the script's puns and set pieces. This meticulous process, from early leads to final extras, contributed to the film's success as Amazon MGM's fourth most-watched title, with over 75 million viewers. Idris Elba's role as Sam Clark demanded an actor capable of conveying quiet intensity and leadership under fire, qualities Elba has honed over a career spanning drama, action, and voice work in Zootopia and Sonic the Hedgehog. His casting was a coup for the production, as his star status helped secure financing and distribution through Amazon. Similarly, John Cena's evolution from wrestler to actor mirrored his character's backstory, allowing for meta-humor about Hollywood's influence on politics. Priyanka Chopra Jonas, fresh off Citadel, brought action credentials that aligned with Bissett's field agent persona, her training in stunts and firearms evident in the film's fight scenes. Paddy Considine's grade-off benefited from his experience in period and fantasy roles, infusing the arms dealer with a Shakespearean villainy tempered by absurdity. Stephen Root's hacker role played to his comedic timing, often underappreciated in larger ensembles but crucial for pacing. Carla Gugino's VP Kirk allowed for explorations of ambition and loyalty, her chemistry with Cena adding depth to political subplots. Jack Quaid's CIA officer drew from his The Boys satire, fitting the film's tongue-in-cheek take on espionage. Sarah Niles' chief of staff role showcased her ability to steal scenes with understated humor, as seen in Ted Lasso. Richard Coyle's Harrington provided a foil to Elba's Clark, his posh demeanor contrasting the PM's grit. Charlotte Copley's Cooper added improvisational energy, his collaboration with Naishuller on previous projects likely influencing the choice. Claire Foster's First Lady brought warmth, her theater background ensuring emotional authenticity and limited screen time. The minor cast, including Kuznetsov as Sasha, added menace through physical performance, his role requiring precision in choreography. Charash's agent Peters contributed to intelligence, Newell's and Owenford's aides mirrored real political staff, Poletti's anchor delivered news bites, Schleicher's Icelandic president promoted gender balance, Sloane's Danish delegate added UN gravitas, Stone's voice work enhanced multilingualism, Thompson's photographer captured chaos, McEnova's analyst handled surveillance, Wennington's aide supported U.S. scenes, White's child added human stakes, and Wolf's delegate completed global tapestry. Robson and Jill's bodyguards provided action fodder, their roles essential for stunt sequences. This comprehensive casting, orchestrated by Holland, Paps Sidra, Short, and Carlotti, resulted in a cohesive ensemble that elevated Heads of State beyond typical genre fare, blending star appeal with skilled support for a wildly entertaining ride. Production development and pre-production. The journey of Heads of State began in October 2020 when Amazon Studios acquired the project, marking the beginning of what would become one of the streaming platform's most successful action comedies. The initial announcement revealed that the film would reunite Idris Elba and John Cena, two actors who had previously worked together on The Suicide Squad released in 2021. Their established chemistry from that DC Extended Universe film became a foundational element in the decision to cast them as the leads. The concept centered on a mismatched odd couple of world leaders finding themselves forced to work together despite their differences, a premise developed by Harrison Query, with the screenplay penned by Josh Applebaum and Andre Tilde. Copyright Nemec, the writing duo known for their work on Mission Impossible: A Ghost Protocol. The project remained in development for approximately 2 years before gaining significant momentum. In October 2022, a crucial addition to the creative team was made when Ilya Naishuller was hired to direct the film. Naishuller brought a distinctive directorial style to the project, having previously established himself with the innovative first-person action film Hardcore Henry and the critically acclaimed Nobody. His kinetic, visceral approach to action sequences and ability to balance violence with dark humor made him an ideal choice for a film that would need to seamlessly blend buddy comedy dynamics with high-stakes action. The casting process continued into 2023 with several key additions that would round out the ensemble. In April 2023, Priyanka Chopra Jonas joined the production, taking on the role of Noel Bissett, a senior MI6 agent who becomes central to the narrative. Chopra Jonas, known for her work in Baywatch, Isn't That Romantic, and the Prime Video series Citadel, brought international star power and action credibility to the project. Her casting was particularly significant as it added another dimension to the film's global appeal. The following month, in May 2023, the production announced a wave of supporting cast additions that would fill out the film's international conspiracy narrative. Paddy Considine, known for his versatile dramatic work, was cast as Viktor Gradov, the Russian arms dealer antagonist. Stephen Root, a character actor with extensive comedy credentials, joined as Arthur Hammond, a hacker working for the villain. Carla Gugino took on the role of Elizabeth Kirk, the Vice President of the United States, while Jack Quaid, riding high on his success from The Boys on Prime Video, was cast as Marty Comer, a CIA officer. The ensemble was further strengthened by Sarah Niles from Ted Lasso as Simone Bradshaw, the White House Chief of Staff, and Richard Coyle as Quincy Harrington, the Downing Street Chief of Staff. Pre-production involved extensive planning for the film's ambitious international scope. Producer John Rickard emphasized that Heads of State was conceived as a genuine road movie that would travel the world to capture diverse backdrops. This approach required coordination across multiple countries and the identification of locations that could both serve the story and provide the visual scale necessary for a globe-trotting political thriller. Production designer Neil Maroney and his team began the process of scouting and preparing locations across Europe, while also planning significant studio work that would be necessary for some of the film's more elaborate set pieces. The production companies involved in the project reflected its scale and ambition. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer served as the primary studio, with the Safran company, headed by producer Peter Safran, providing production expertise. Additional production support came from Potboiler and Big Indie Pictures. The involvement of Amazon Studios, which would later become Amazon MGM Studios during the production period, ensured that the film would have the resources necessary for its ambitious scope while being positioned for a major streaming release. Filming principal photography on Heads of State commenced in May 2023 in London, England. The British capital served as a logical starting point given that a significant portion of the narrative involves the UK Prime Minister character played by Idris Elba. London provided authentic political backdrops and urban environments suitable for the film's opening sequences and establishment of the geopolitical stakes. The production utilized various locations throughout the city, filming scenes that would depict the power dynamics between the American and British leaders. In June 2023, the production moved to Liverpool, specifically utilizing the iconic St. George's Hall, an neoclassical landmark that frequently appears in film and television productions. The hall's grand interiors and impressive exterior steps made it ideal for depicting high-stakes diplomatic or ceremonial scenes. The Port of Liverpool building was also used during this phase of filming. These Liverpool locations would ultimately stand in for scenes set at a NATO summit in Trieste, Italy, demonstrating the production's creative approach to location doubling. During this time, the production attracted local attention, with residents spotting cast members including Priyanka Chopra Jonas and her husband Nick Jonas enjoying family time in the city between filming. These Liverpool locations would ultimately stand in for scenes set at a NATO summit in Trieste, Italy, demonstrating the production's creative approach to location doubling. During this time, the production attracted local attention, with residents spotting cast members including Priyanka Chopra Jonas and her husband Nick Jonas enjoying family time in the city between filming. As production progressed through the summer of 2023, the production team relocated to mainland Europe. In July and August, filming took place in Trieste, Italy, where some of the film's most ambitious action sequences were captured. The Italian coastal city provided the backdrop for elaborate chase scenes that would become centerpieces of the film's action. The narrow streets, historic piazzas, and waterfront locations of Trieste offered both aesthetic beauty and practical challenges for the stunt coordination team. Piazza Unita d'Italia, the Ponte Rosso, the port of Trieste, and the city's cathedral all featured prominently in the filming, providing authentic European atmosphere for the climactic sequences. However, the initial production schedule faced significant disruption when the Hollywood strikes by screenwriters and actors began. The production had been preparing to film in Italy, with locations standing in for Spain, when work came to an abrupt halt. This pause in filming could have derailed the entire project, but the intervention of Peninsula Film, a French production services company, proved crucial. The production was able to pivot and relocate substantial portions of filming to southern France, allowing work to continue despite the industrial action affecting Hollywood productions. The French portion of filming proved extensive and creative. Unable to film the opening La Tomatina festival sequence in its actual location of Bueil-plus-Minus-All, Spain, or use actual tomatoes, the production recreated the tomato-throwing festivities in the village of Sospel in southern France. Saint Michel Square inches Sospel, with its colorful Fête de Section Aids, cobblestone ground, and Baroque church, was transformed to represent the Spanish festival location. The production design team added temporary Fête de Section Aids, plant-covered balconies, and colorful pennants to create the festive atmosphere. For the iconic Tomatina sequence, approximately 40 tons of fake tomato sauce were prepared following extensive testing to ensure both participant safety and preservation of the historically protected site. Visual effects and special effects supplemented the practical elements to achieve the chaotic, tomatoey carnage depicted in the final film. Nice and the surrounding Côte d'Azur region provided additional French filming locations. The historic Victorini Studios in Nice became a crucial production base, particularly for complex stunt-heavy interior sequences. The interiors of the film's final car chase sequence were filmed at this facility, allowing for controlled conditions in which the elaborate action could be safely executed. The studio work in Nice was complemented by location filming throughout the region. Grasse, known primarily as France's perfume capital, saw its coastal roads and old town streets utilized for European sequences. Château de Saint-Dieter in Grasse was selected to represent the luxurious estate of the film's antagonist Victor Gradov, with its grand architecture and private estate atmosphere requiring minimal modification to suit the character's wealthy persona. Château de copyright Neuilly-sur-Mer, another coastal town in the region, was chosen to depict a boat departure from Croatia. The location's crystal-clear waters, charming pier, and colorful seaside cottages provided a convincing Adriatic aesthetic while offering ideal natural lighting conditions for cinematography. Vaugreneur Park in Villeneuve served as the setting for a moment of remembrance within an American family estate, with its tall trees and rolling hills helping to create an intimate and solemn setting evocative of the United States without actually filming in America. Studio work in the United Kingdom proved essential for some of the film's most spectacular set pieces. Longcross Studios in Surrey became the site of one of the production's most ambitious constructions, a full-scale replica of Air Force One. This massive set piece was built to facilitate the film's dramatic plane crash sequence, allowing the production to control every aspect of the destruction and chaos without the impossibility of using an actual presidential aircraft. The Longcross facility also hosted filming for various other interior sequences, including scenes set at a Warsaw safe house, demonstrating the versatility of the studio space. For the crash landing sequence set in Belarus, production designer Neil Moroney reconfigured a military base in the area near Surrey rather than filming in Eastern Europe, showcasing the production's ability to transform locations to suit the narrative needs. Nearly a year after the initial photography wrapped, the production returned for additional shooting. In May 2024, the cast and crew traveled to Belgrade, Serbia, for supplementary scenes. The Serbian capital and its surrounding areas were used to depict various aspects of the Eastern European portions of the narrative. The industrial areas of Belgrade provided suitable locations for hideout scenes and shootouts, while the Serbian countryside featured in a memorable farmyard fight scene where the characters attempt to hotwire a car and encounter local farmers in a comedic altercation. The flexibility to return for these additional scenes speaks to the production's commitment to ensuring that every sequence achieved the desired impact. Throughout the filming process, director Ilya Naishuller maintained the distinctive visual style that had characterized his previous work. The production reportedly dealt with reshoots and adjustments, but Naishuller retained the playfully violent kinetic charm that had defined his earlier films. The action sequences were designed to be both visceral and entertaining, with careful attention paid to stunt coordination and practical effects wherever possible. The international scope of the filming meant that the production team had to navigate different regulatory environments, crew availability, and logistical challenges, but the diverse locations ultimately contributed to the film's sense of global stakes and scale. Post-production. Following the completion of principal photography, Heads of State entered an extensive post-production phase. By December 2024, the film was confirmed to be in post-production status, indicating that the editing, visual effects, sound design, and musical composition were all underway. This phase proved crucial for integrating the various international filming locations into a cohesive narrative and ensuring that the action sequences flowed with the rapid pacing that the film required. The editing process faced the challenge of balancing the buddy comedy elements with the action thriller components. The film needed to maintain energetic pacing throughout its runtime while allowing space for character development and comedic beats. The editing team worked to ensure that the banter between Elba and Cena's characters didn't slow the momentum but rather enhanced it, using the dialogue as a counterpoint to the action rather than a pause from it. The decision to maintain a relatively brisk pace throughout the film reflected the desire to keep audiences engaged from the opening Tomato Festival sequence through to the climactic confrontations. Visual effects work proved substantial, particularly for the sequences that combined practical stunts with digital enhancement. The Air Force One crash sequence required extensive VFX work to make the studio-built set piece appear as though it was actually plummeting from the sky and crash-landing in Eastern European wilderness. The Tomato Festival opening, with its fake tomato sauce and practical elements, needed additional digital work to sell the scale and chaos of the event. Chase sequences filmed in Trieste and other locations received digital augmentation to heighten the sense of danger and spectacular destruction. The integration of the various filming locations into a believable narrative geography required careful attention in post-production. Locations in England stood in for locations in Italy, French villages represented Spanish festivals, and Serbian countryside doubled for Belarus. The post-production team worked to ensure visual consistency and believability, using color grading and digital techniques to help disparate locations feel like part of the same world. By February 2025, the film reached completed status, indicating that all principal post-production work had been finished and the film was ready for delivery to Amazon MGM Studios. This timeline meant that the film had approximately 5 months between completion and its scheduled July 2025 release date, allowing time for marketing campaigns, press screenings, and promotional activities. Music. The musical landscape of Heads of State was crafted by Academy Award-winning composer Stephen Price, whose hiring brought considerable pedigree to the project. Price had won the Oscar for his work on Alfonso Cuarón's Gravity and had established himself as a composer capable of balancing intense action with emotional depth through scores for films including Fury, Baby Driver, Suicide Squad, The World's End, Last Night in Soho, and the documentary series Our Planet. His approach to Heads of State involved creating a score that could shift between comedic buddy movie moments and tense action thriller sequences without feeling disjointed. The original score, released by Milan Records under license from Amazon Content Services LLC, consisted of 21 tracks with a total runtime of approximately 1 hour and 9 minutes. Price's composition incorporated orchestral elements with contemporary electronic sounds, creating a sonic palette that reflected the film's blend of traditional political thriller tropes with modern action comedy sensibilities. The music needed to support both the large-scale geopolitical stakes of the plot and the intimate character dynamics between the two leads, requiring flexibility and range in the compositional approach. The recording and production of the score involved multiple specialized professionals. Gareth Cousins served as mixing engineer, responsible for ensuring that Price's compositions integrated seamlessly with the film's dialogue and sound effects. John Barrett handled recording engineering duties, capturing the orchestral and electronic elements with clarity and dynamic range. Alex Borden provided mastering services, giving the final score the polish and presence necessary for both streaming platform presentation and potential home video releases. Price himself served as producer on the soundtrack, maintaining creative control over the final presentation of his work. Beyond Price's original composition, music supervisor Susan Kent, known for her work on the Netflix series You, selected various licensed songs to feature in the film as needle drops. These popular music selections provided additional flavor and period specificity to various sequences. The film soundtrack incorporated tracks from diverse artists, creating a musical tapestry that reflected the international nature of the narrative. The opening sequence featuring the Lotomatina Festival was scored with Volare by the Gypsy Kings, a version of the classic Italian song that immediately established the European setting and festive atmosphere. This choice set the tone for the film's approach to music, selecting recognizable tracks that could enhance the mood and setting rather than simply providing background noise. Elvis Presley's Can't Help Falling in Love appeared later in the film during a sequence where Clark acknowledges Derringer's film career, saying that his action movies are classics. The song scored a slow-motion sequence as the two leaders plotted against antagonist Viktor Gradov, providing an ironic romantic underscore to what was essentially a tactical planning moment. The use of such an iconic love song in an action context exemplified the film's willingness to play with musical conventions and expectations. Other notable tracks included the Beastie Boys, Dr. Dre featuring Eminem and Xzibit with What's the Difference in Trailer Music, and Russian Village Boys featuring Cosmo and Skoro performing Psycha, which provided cultural specificity to sequences involving the Russian antagonist and his associates. The eclectic mix of musical styles and periods prevented the film from feeling musically monotonous and supported the globe-trotting nature of the narrative. The soundtrack was released digitally on July 2, 2025. Coinciding with the film's streaming premiere on Prime Video. It was made available on all major digital music platforms including Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Spotify, allowing audiences to revisit the musical elements of the film independently. The simultaneous release of the film and soundtrack reflected modern distribution practices where music could serve as both an artistic element of the film and a separate revenue stream and marketing tool. Released theatrical. Unlike many major action films that receive traditional theatrical releases, Heads of State achieved 50 million viewers in just its first 4 days on the platform following a theatrical release. The second position belonged to The Accountant 2, starring Ben Affleck and John Bernthal, which had garnered 80 million viewers over its first 28 days. The third spot was held by The Tomorrow War, another action film that had found streaming success. Heads of State's placement among this elite group of titles demonstrated its strong performance relative to other high-profile releases on the platform. The 75 million viewer figure carried particular significance because Heads of State achieved this milestone without the benefit of a theatrical release. Both Red One and The Accountant 2 had received theatrical distribution before their streaming debuts, providing built-in awareness and marketing buzz that streaming exclusive releases typically must generate through other means. The fact that Heads of State matched or exceeded the streaming performance of some theatrically released films suggested that Prime Video's platform reach and marketing capabilities could successfully launch major action titles without traditional theatrical support. The film's streaming success was further evidenced by its performance on various tracking platforms. During its debut week, Heads of State captured the #1 position on Nielsen's movie chart with 1.098 billion minutes streamed, an impressive measure of aggregate viewing time that indicated both the number of viewers and their engagement with the content. The film maintained the #1 position on Prime Video's own internal charts for 4 consecutive weeks following its release, demonstrating sustained audience interest beyond the initial curiosity-driven weekend viewing. According to Flix Patrol data, which tracks streaming performance across platforms and territories, Heads of State achieved remarkable international reach. As of early July 2025, the film topped the Prime Video movie charts in nearly every country where the service was available. Only 3 territories aside Japan, Italy, and India did not have the film as their #1 title, with those markets instead favoring local content or other releases. This near-universal international popularity underscored the film's appeal across diverse cultural markets and languages. The financial implications of these viewership numbers, while not directly comparable to box office grosses, represented substantial value to Amazon. Industry analysts note that streaming views translate to subscriber value through retention, engagement, and platform loyalty. A film that draws 75 million viewers generates word-of-mouth marketing, social media conversation, and reasons for subscribers to maintain their memberships. Additionally, the ability to point to high-profile, star-driven action content helps Prime Video compete with rival platforms like Netflix, Disney+, and Max for subscriber attention and market share. The absence of traditional box office reporting also meant that the film's production budget remained undisclosed, making cost-to-return calculations impossible for outside observers. Amazon does not publicly report the specific costs of its individual productions or the precise value it assigns to viewer metrics. This opacity in streaming economics represents a significant difference from theatrical releases, where production budgets, marketing spends, and box office returns are tracked publicly, allowing for transparent analysis of financial performance. Comparatively, the film's performance suggested that streaming-exclusive action comedies could achieve commercial viability without theatrical distribution. The 75 million viewers figure, when contextualized within Prime Video's broader subscriber base and compared to theatrical attendance figures, suggested that the reach of streaming platforms could match or exceed theatrical releases for certain genres and audience segments, particularly for films positioned as accessible entertainment rather than event cinema. Critical response: Heads of State received a mixed to positive critical reception upon its release, with reviewers generally appreciating the chemistry between the lead actors while noting the film's formulaic approach and predictable plotting. The film's critical assessment reflected a common pattern for streaming action comedies: recognition of entertainment value and star power balanced against observations about shallow characterization and reliance on genre conventions. On Rotten Tomatoes, the primary review aggregation platform, Heads of State achieved a 68% positive rating based on 111 critic reviews. While this fresh rating indicated that a majority of critics viewed the film positively, the percentage suggested a film that divided opinion rather than achieving universal acclaim. The site's critical consensus captured the general sentiment concisely, noting that the film's approach to geopolitics might be overly simplified, but acknowledging that the partnerships between Elba and Cena remained engaging and that the action sequences were executed with professional competence. The consensus praised the film as a competent genre exercise that succeeded largely on the strength of its leads' performances and their evident on-screen rapport. Metacritic, which employs a weighted average methodology to compile critic scores into a single numerical rating, assigned Heads of State a score of 57 out of 100 based on 19 critic reviews. This score falls into the site's mixed or average reviews category, suggesting that while critics found elements to appreciate, the film failed to generate widespread enthusiasm or critical acclaim. The Metacritic score, generally considered more selective and rigorous than Rotten Tomatoes' binary fresh, rotten system, indicated that critics saw the film as competent but unremarkable, successful within its modest ambitions but unlikely to be remembered as a standout entry in either the action or comedy genre. Among individual critic responses, Pete Hammond of Deadline Hollywood offered one of the more critical assessments, awarding the film a lukewarm review that acknowledged the action-packed opening sequence set during the La Tomatina Festival but ultimately found the script lacking in wit and the overall execution predictable. Hammond noted that despite the considerable talents of both Cena and Elba, both actors adept at combining comedy with action, the screenplay by Josh Applebaum, Andre Tilde copyright Nemec, and Harrison Query failed to provide them with material worthy of their abilities. His review characterized the film as loaded with action, violence, explosions, and not much else, suggesting that spectacle had been prioritized over substance and that the comedic elements fell flat despite the actors' best efforts. Matt Zoller cites of RogerRabbit.com provided a more generous assessment, awarding the film 2.5 stars out of 4, a middling but not entirely dismissive evaluation. Sites characterized the film as entertainment that succeeded within its limited ambitions, writing that it constituted a form of enjoyable escapism executed with sufficient style that its narrative thinness and occasionally glib tone didn't significantly detract from the viewing experience. His review suggested that audiences approaching the film with appropriate expectations, seeking unpretentious action comedy rather than sophisticated political satire, would likely find it satisfying. Sites particularly praised director Ilya Naishuller's visual panache and the film's self-awareness about its own absurdity. The Hollywood Reporter's review, while not providing a numerical score, offered qualified praise for the central performances while noting the film's reliance on buddy comedy and action thriller conventions. The review acknowledged that Cena and Elba brought charisma and comedic timing to their roles, with Cena's exaggerated energy playing effectively against Elba's more reserved, deadpan delivery. However, the review also noted that the screenplay offered few surprises, following a predictable trajectory that audiences familiar with the buddy action comedy genre would recognize from numerous predecessors. Audience reception, as measured by Rotten Tomatoes' verified viewer ratings, proved slightly more positive than the critical consensus. The film achieved a 71% audience score, suggesting that general viewers found the film more entertaining than professional critics did. This pattern of audiences rating a film more favorably than critics often indicates a movie that succeeds as populist entertainment even when it fails to meet critical standards for originality or sophistication. User reviews on the platform frequently praised the film as fun, entertaining, and exactly what it promises, suggesting that audiences who approached the movie as light escapism rather than serious cinema found it delivered on those modest expectations. On IMDb, the film achieved a rating of 6.4 out of 10, a score indicating general audience satisfaction without enthusiasm. User reviews on that platform emphasized the chemistry between Cena and Elba, the energy of the action sequences, and the film's self-aware humor. Common criticisms included predictability, occasional lapses in visual effects quality, and a narrative that struggled to maintain tension given its conventional plotting. Several reviews noted that the film worked best when it embraced its own absurdity and avoided taking its geopolitical premise too seriously. The critical conversation around heads of state frequently compared it to other recent buddy action comedies and noted its position within the broader streaming landscape. Some reviewers positioned it as comfort food cinema, a familiar, undemanding entertainment that served as background viewing or casual weekend watching rather than demanding the full attention required by more ambitious films. This characterization, while not exactly praise, acknowledged a legitimate audience appetite for accessible action comedy content that doesn't require deep engagement or prior knowledge. Several critics specifically praised Priyanka Chopra Jonas's performance as MI6 agent Noel Bissett, noting that she brought gravitas and action credibility to a role that could have been purely functional. Jack Quaid's appearance as an enthusiastic CIA officer received positive mentions for its comedic energy, with some reviewers suggesting that his character deserved more screen time. The supporting cast, including Paddy Considine as the villain, Stephen Root, Carla Gugino, and Sarah Niles, were generally praised for elevating material that might have felt more generic in less capable hands. The film's approach to political satire received mixed responses. Some critics appreciated the light touch and refusal to engage too seriously with real-world political dynamics, while others felt that the decision to avoid meaningful political commentary resulted in a film that felt toothless and superficial. The characterization of an American president as a former action movie star invited obvious real-world comparisons, but the film largely avoided making specific political statements, opting instead for generic observations about diplomatic tensions and international cooperation. Director Ilya Naishuller's stylistic contributions received recognition from multiple reviewers. Critics familiar with his previous work on Hardcore Henry and Nobody noted that he brought similar kinetic energy and violent creativity to Heads of State's action sequences. The film's willingness to stage elaborate set pieces across multiple international locations was praised, as was the integration of practical stunts with digital effects. However, some reviewers felt that Naishuller's distinctive style was somewhat diluted by the demands of creating a more mainstream, accessible comedy compared to his previous, edgier work. The music and soundtrack received scattered mention in reviews, with Stephen Price's score generally considered serviceable but not particularly memorable. The use of licensed music, including the prominent placement of classic rock and pop tracks, was seen as effective in establishing mood and energy, even if the choices felt somewhat obvious and calculated to appeal to broad audience tastes. Common critical complaints centered on the screenplay's predictability, with reviewers noting that the film telegraphed its plot twists well in advance and relied heavily on action comedy cliché-copyright-esque. The revelation of the true villain, the various betrayals, and the evolution of the central relationships between Cena and Elba's characters all followed expected patterns. This predictability wasn't necessarily considered a fatal flaw. Many critics acknowledged that genre conventions exist because they work, but it did limit the film's ability to surprise or innovate within its chosen format. The film's treatment of international politics and espionage drew criticism for its superficiality. While the film invoked real intelligence agencies, geopolitical alliances, and surveillance systems, its engagement with these elements remained purely surface level, using them as backdrop for action sequences rather than exploring their implications. Critics noted that films like the Bourne series or the Mission Impossible franchise managed to combine elaborate action with at least some engagement with the ethical and political dimensions of intelligence work, whereas Heads of State treated these elements as interchangeable genre dressing. The post-credits scene, revealing the survival of Jack Quaid's character, received particular attention from reviewers discussing the film's potential franchise aspirations. Several critics noted that this tease of future adventures felt obligatory rather than earned, suggesting that the film might be setting up sequels without first establishing whether audiences wanted to spend more time with these characters. The scene's comedic tone featuring the character attempting to pick up women at a bar was seen as consistent with the film's overall approach but also as indicative of its reluctance to develop genuine emotional stakes. As weeks passed following the initial release, subsequent critical Priyanka Chopra Jonas is going from Agboa's Citadel to Amazon Studios for Heads of State, an upcoming action film starring John Cena and Idris Elba. Action fans should get excited about this project, given that it comes from nobody director Ilya Naishuller. Josh Applebaum and Andrei Tilda copyright Namik wrote the script based on a draft by Harrison Query. Plot details remain a mystery, but sources say the project combines Air Force One with Midnight Run. DC Studios co-head Peter Safran produces with John Rickard. In addition to their starring roles, Cena and Elba will executive produce with Marcus Visidi. Priyanka Chopra Jonas will star alongside Richard Madden, Eternals, and Stanley Tucci in the Prime Video series Citadel, premiering on April 28, 2023. The global spy agency Citadel has fallen in the show, and agents have had their memories wiped clean. Now the powerful syndicate, Manticore, is rising in the void. Can the Citadel agents recollect their past and summon the strength to fight back? Regarding movies, Priyanka Chopra Jonas is starring in Sonny's Love Again, a romantic comedy directed and co-written by Jim Strauss. The story focuses on a young woman trying to ease the pain of her fiancé Tilda copyright-esque death by sending romantic texts to his old cell phone number, forming a connection with the number's new owner. Another film project includes Sheila, a biopic telling the story of Sheila Ambalu Patel, who became Manan Sheila, one of the leaders in the controversial Rajneesh movement during the 1980s who used illegal tactics to silence local dissenters in Oregon. Priyanka Chopra Jonas is familiar with action and danger. Still, she'll get her fill of both when filming for Heads of State starts in May. With John Cena and Idris Elba also starring, Heads of State could be a brutal thrill ride with multiple stars throwing down at the height of their careers. We'll keep you updated about the details of this exciting project and hope it's as thrilling as the stars assigned to light up the screen. Are you interested in watching Heads of State based on the cast alone, or do you need more information? Let us know in the comments. Priyanka Chopra Jonas is teaming up with Idris Elba and John Cena in the new action comedy Heads of State, which releases exclusively on Prime Video on July 2. The film combines fast-paced action sequences and creative stunts with a heavy dose of nostalgia fit with all of the 90s charm of the golden era of buddy action comedies. The new trailer for Priyanka's newest Hollywood film has now been released. In the action comedy Heads of State, the UK Prime Minister Sam Clarke, Idris Elba, and US President Will Derringer, John Cena, have a not-so-friendly and very public rivalry that jeopardizes their country's special relationship. But when they become the targets of a powerful and ruthless foreign adversary who proves more than a match for the two leaders' security forces, they are begrudgingly forced to rely on the only two people they can't trust, each other. Ultimately allied with the brilliant MI6 agent Noah Bissett, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, they must go on the run and find a way to work together long enough to thwart a global conspiracy that threatens the entire free world. Watch the new action-packed trailer for Heads of State here, directed by Ilya Naishuller, Hardcore Henry and Nobody. Heads of State is a global adventure blending explosive action and sharp comedic banter that, from what we have seen so far, takes audiences on the run and for a thrilling ride. Watch this space for more. Rather than give the world an escape, Heads of State, Amazon's throwback buddy comedy, thrums attention in U.S. foreign relations. Suicide Squad veterans Idris Elba and John Cena are redeployed in the Scun show from Nobody director Ilya Naishuller, respectively, as the UK Prime Minister and US President at loggerheads. President Derringer, barely 6 months in office, resents the PM for not doing more to help him get elected. Prime Minister Clarke, a 6-year incumbent mired in an approval ratings slump, has already dismissed the president as a swaggering former action hero as a Schwarzenegger knockoff. After a joint press conference goes sideways and spoils the announcement of a NATO-supported energy initiative, the pair are forced on an Air Force One ride to help repair the PR damage. But it gets worse when the plane is shot down. As it turns out, the NATO energy thingy was cribbed from a nuclear scientist that alliance forces neutralized to head off the threat of another Hiroshima. And his father, a psycho arms dealer named Viktor Gradov, a rueful Paddy Considine, is bent on revenge. In fact, the 2-hour film opens with Noah, a skull-cracking MI6 agent played by Priyanka Chopra, leading a covert strike on Gradov in the middle of the world-famous Tomatina festival in +/- Spain, that turns upside down when she and her team are felled in the food fight. That botched operation, a part of a wider sabotage, as we'll learn later, is top of mind when the President and Prime Minister bail out of Air Force One, under attack from without and within, into a Belarusian wood. From there, they must find their way back to safe harbor, not knowing whom they can trust when they get there, of course. All the while they're being chased by Gradov's hell-raising henchmen Sasha and Olga the Killers, whom Alexander Kuznetsov and Katrina Turden play like Boris and Natasha, but eviler. It's the kind of paint-by-numbers summer tentpole that would have drawn a crowd in 2013 when Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down were doing serious box office numbers. The fact that Amazon MGM went straight to streaming with it, instead of doing an exclusive theatrical release first, speaks volumes about the state of play in the film industry and, perhaps, the mixed reception for G20, their straight-to-streaming shoot-em-up about the female president who has to fight her way out of a global summit. But where a Bezos studio head could make the case that Viola Davis isn't a solo draw, even as her body of work suggests otherwise, the lack of faith in Head's theatrical potential is beyond comprehension. John Cena remains one of, if not the biggest draw in professional wrestling, while popping up in everything from the Fast and Furious franchise to The Simpsons. Idris, star of Big, Hobbs Shaw, and Small Screen, Luther, The Wire, has been touted as a possible James Bond successor for a solid decade. Chopra is a Bollywood superstar who successfully pivoted to network TV and married a Jonas brother. Why did Amazon think this film wouldn't do well at the Cineplex? They should have had more confidence in their leads, all three of whom meet the broad performance profile for a popcorn thriller. Elba in particular does a deft job of toggling from his odd couple chemistry with Cena, the exceptional actor-wrestler besides Dave Bautista who can really play the margins between tough and tender, to the romantic chemistry with Chopra, who gets to kick ass and take punches just like in her Quantico days. The rest of the cast delivers, too. Richard Coyle plays against his coupling type as the PM's dear right hand, while Sarah Niles with her resting bitch, please face is a study in quiet strength again as the president's top hate and best bud. Stephen Root, a hacker double agent, is always a treat. And Jack Quaid, fresh off playing lead in Novocaine, hams it up so hard in his handful of appearances as a CIA safe house watchman that he earns his very own end. What if action star Arnold Schwarzenegger's dreams of becoming U.S. president came true? Well, John Cena gets to live out the action star-turned-president fantasy in the action comedy A Heads of State while Carla Gugino gets to break the glass ceiling plus Hillary Clinton's dreams for a few seconds. Oh, and Priyanka Chopra plays another version of her character from A Citadel, and Idris Elba gets to be Britain's first black prime minister. So basically, A Heads of State is simply a wild action, a fantasy comedy, imaginative only in giving us fictional groundbreaking political characters, while the rest of the plot is just a rehash of all the big-budget action movies we've been served in the past. Think Gal Gadot, Ilya Batstar Reinhardt of Stony or Mark Wahlberg and Halle Berry's The Union or even the Bollywood spin-off of A Citadel but with lots of political satire. The plot is about Russian terrorists, obviously, stealing big tech to target US President Will Derringer, John Cena, and UK PM Sam Clarke, Idris Elba, to destabilize NATO and world peace. How can it be less than world peace? Priyanka Chopra plays Noel Bissett, a senior MI6 agent who ends up with the task of protecting Clarke and Derringer from the crazy Russians. Chopper crashes, car explosions, train chases, and lots of guns, grenades, and deaths follow. All the lead actors get some really cool action moves through the runtime, although, ironically, John Cena plays the least combat-ready character in the film. You know within the first few minutes of A Heads of State that you need to let your brain take a break and enjoy this action mayhem, which, by the way, begins with a stunningly shot La Tomatina Fest in Spain, where Noel Bissett's team of spies are brutally ambushed by notorious global arms dealer Viktor Gradov, Paddy Considine, and his team. The story then shifts focus to the turbulent political relationships between actor-turned-president Will Derringer and UK PM Sam Clarke, who meet for a summit and end up spending a lot more time together than they'd like when they are nearly killed by the Russian antagonists. It's the unlikely, comedic bromance between John Cena's Will and Idris Elba's Sam that makes A Heads of State quite entertaining in parts. Besides, if Donald Trump can be US president twice, so can John Cena's fictional, brawny Hollywood action star version. As an action fan, my favorite part in the film is Jack Quaid's cameo as Marty Comer, an American agent who briefly protects Will and Sam from armed terrorists. Quaid, known for playing Huey in hit show The Boys, delivers a line they say never meet your heroes which only fans of the show will recognize as a darkly fun Easter egg. In The Boys, Huey is scarred for life after doing exactly that. In the much better than it sounds Amazon-backed action comedy Heads of State, relations are frosty between the President of the United States, John Cena, and the British Prime Minister, Idris Elba, until a terrorist attack forces them to team up and take out the threat themselves. There are at least half a dozen things about that sentence that might strike you as preposterous, but only one worth reiterating: Heads of State is infinitely more entertaining than it comes across on paper. America has never had a president as underqualified for the job as Cena's Will Derringer, a swollen Hollywood action hero best known for the Water Cobra franchise. The model for this character was clearly Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose Austrian origins preclude him from governing, but not from gubernating. Otherwise, he's no less plausible a commando-in-chief than the matinee idols and reality TV stars who've done the job in this crazy, post-idiocracy world. Across the proverbial pond, Elba embodies UK PM Sam Clarke, who's another forward-thinking choice for a country that recently elected its first person of color to the post. As written, Clarke would be the first person with military experience to serve as prime minister in nearly half a century, which makes him an actual strongman, so to speak, compared to Derringer, who merely played one on TV. The surprising thing here isn't the casting or the conception of these characters, all of which is done in the spirit of don't think too hard escapist funny, but the fact that Amazon succeeded in making such a big screen-worthy popcorn movie. Lately, it's starting to look like the studio is commissioning films according to some algorithm, one that privileges movies about presidents. After seeing an in-charge Viola Davis serve and protect in G20 earlier this year and the adult sons of the president and prime minister exploring their country's special relationship in red, white royal blue last summer, you could be forgiven for writing off heads of state. But then, you would miss a movie that's no sillier than big studio superhero fare, a comparison worth making, since both adhere to a mythical sense of heroism. After opening with a spectacular shootout involving a tertiary but important undercover character named Noel Bissett, played by Priyanka Chopra Jonas, caught in the crossfire of Spain's messy La Tomatina festival, the film introduces its incredibly capable world leaders. In the action comedy Heads of State, UK Prime Minister Sam Clarke, Idris Elba, and US President Will Derringer, John Cena, have a public rivalry that jeopardizes their country's special relationship. But when they become targets of a ruthless foreign adversary, they must set aside their differences and begrudgingly rely on each other. After being shot down in Air Force One, Clarke and Derringer are forced to go on a dangerous, multinational run pursued by enemies intent on killing them. With the help of MI6 agent Noel Bissett, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, they must work together to thwart a global conspiracy that threatens the free world. The story opens on a global stage where politics feels more like entertainment than leadership. The President of the United States, Will Derringer, is a former action movie star who turned his popularity into political power. He speaks in punchlines, smiles for cameras, and treats world diplomacy like a red carpet event. Across the Atlantic, the British Prime Minister, Sam Clarke, is the complete opposite. He is serious, disciplined, and shaped by a past in the military. Where Derringer thrives on attention, Clarke avoids it. Where one leads with charm, the other leads with strategy. The world already knows they dislike each other, and the media enjoys every moment of their public clashes. Their rivalry becomes headline news when both leaders are scheduled to attend a major international summit meant to strengthen global security alliances. Cameras capture their forced handshakes and stiff smiles, hiding the tension underneath. Privately, their conversations are sharp and sarcastic, filled with subtle insults and ideological differences. Neither trusts the other, yet both are unaware that powerful forces are watching them closely, planning something far more dangerous than political embarrassment. As the summit approaches, intelligence agencies across the world pick up fragments of troubling information. A shadowy arms dealer, Viktor Gradov, has been quietly building a network that stretches across borders. His goal is not money alone, but chaos. By destabilizing alliances between powerful nations, he believes he can reshape the global balance of power. His plan requires one bold move: removing the two most visible symbols of Western leadership in a single strike. During a high-profile journey to the summit, President Derringer and Prime Minister Clarke board a heavily guarded aircraft. The flight is meant to be routine, surrounded by layers of security, surveillance, and military protection. Yet no one anticipates how deeply Gradov's influence has already penetrated global defense systems. Midair, alarms erupt. The aircraft is attacked in a sudden, violent assault that leaves no time for proper response. Explosions tear through the sky, and within moments, the plane goes down. The world watches in shock as reports confirm the worst. News channels interrupt programming, social media explodes. Both leaders are declared dead, flags lower, speeches are prepared, and nations brace themselves for instability. But the truth is far different. Against impossible odds, Derringer and Clarke survive the crash, landing deep within hostile territory. Injured, disoriented, and cut off from their teams, they are suddenly just two men trying to stay alive. Stripped of their power, titles, and protection, they are forced into an uneasy alliance. At first, their survival is chaotic. They argue over leadership, decisions, and blame. Derringer's impulsive nature clashes with Clarke's calculated mindset. Every step becomes a struggle, not just against the environment and enemy forces, but against each other. Yet as danger closes in, survival demands cooperation. Their path soon crosses with Noah Bissett, a highly skilled international intelligence operative who has been tracking Gradov for years. She reveals the terrifying scope of the conspiracy. The attack on the aircraft was only the beginning. With both leaders presumed dead, Gradov plans to manipulate global security systems, trigger conflicts between allied nations, and profit from the resulting chaos. If his plan succeeds, the world could be pushed toward large-scale war. Now fugitives in a world that believes they no longer exist, the two leaders must navigate unfamiliar terrain, evade assassins, and uncover the truth before it is too late. Every location they pass through feels unsafe. Trust becomes a luxury. Each encounter could be a trap. Slowly, beneath the tension and sarcasm, a fragile respect begins to form between them. Derringer, once seen as nothing more than a celebrity politician, reveals unexpected courage and loyalty. Clark, once perceived as cold and rigid, shows compassion and adaptability. In moments of quiet between chases and gunfire, they open up about the pressures of leadership, the loneliness of power, and the weight of decisions that affect millions. These conversations humanize them, turning rivals into reluctant allies, and eventually, into partners. As they piece together Gradov's network, the stakes grow higher. Betrayal surfaces from within institutions once thought secure. Allies cannot be trusted blindly. The line between friend and enemy blurs. Each victory comes at a cost, pushing them closer to the heart of the conspiracy. Time is running out, and the world edges closer to disaster with every passing hour. The final confrontation brings everything into focus. Gradov is not just a villain seeking destruction, he is a reflection of what happens when power operates without accountability. Facing him forces Derringer and Clark to confront not only the enemy, but their own flaws as leaders. The battle is intense, chaotic, and personal, demanding sacrifice, unity, and courage beyond politics. When the truth finally reaches the world, the shock is as powerful as the original tragedy. The return of two leaders thought that changes everything. Alliances are restored, conspiracies exposed, and a global crisis narrowly avoided. Yet nothing returns exactly to the way it was. Both the men emerge changed by the experience. They no longer see leadership as a performance or a position, but as responsibility earned through action. The story ends not with triumph, but with understanding. Two very different men, shaped by opposing worlds, discover that unity is sometimes born in the darkest moments. In a world driven by ego, image, and division, their survival becomes a reminder that cooperation can be the strongest weapon of all. The world is used to seeing its leaders argue on screens, trading sharp words behind polished smiles. President Will Derringer of the United States is one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. A former action movie superstar, he rose to power through popularity, confidence, and a carefully crafted public image. He believes leadership is about inspiration, visibility, and bold gestures. Across the ocean, British Prime Minister Sam Clark represents the opposite style of power. He is quiet, disciplined, and shaped by years of military service. He believes leadership is about sacrifice, preparation, and hard decisions made away from cameras. Their personalities clash every time they meet, and the media turns the rivalry into entertainment for the world. When an international security summit is announced, both leaders are required to attend. The event is meant to strengthen alliances and reassure the world that global powers are united. Instead, it becomes another stage for their tension. During press conferences, they exchange subtle insults masked as jokes. Behind closed doors, their disagreements grow sharper. Neither man trusts the other, and both believe the other is unfit to lead. What they do not realize is that someone far more dangerous is watching from the shadows. Viktor Gradov, an international arms dealer, has spent years building a hidden empire. He thrives on conflict and believes that global peace is an illusion maintained by fragile alliances. In his eyes, the world needs chaos to be reshaped. His plan is simple but ruthless: remove the strongest symbols of unity and let fear do the rest. The summit provides him with the perfect opportunity. If the American president and the British Prime Minister fall together, the shock alone could destabilize global politics. As Derringer and Clark travel under heavy security, They believe themselves untouchable. Their aircraft is equipped with advanced defenses, guarded by elite forces, and monitored every second. Yet Gradov's influence runs deeper than anyone suspects. Mid-flight, the attack comes without warning. Explosions rip through the aircraft, alarms scream, and chaos takes over. In a matter of minutes, the plane disappears from radar. The world is told there are no survivors. News spreads like wildfire. Markets panic. Governments prepare emergency responses. Citizens mourn leaders they barely understand but deeply rely on. Speeches are written, flags are lowered, and history seems to shift overnight. But far from the cameras and headlines, the truth is far more desperate. Against all odds, Derringer and Clark survive the crash. Injured, exhausted, and stranded in hostile territory, they wake up to a reality where their titles mean nothing. With no communication and enemies closing in, survival becomes their only priority. Their first instinct is to argue. Derringer wants to move fast, take risks, and improvise. Clark insists on planning, observation, and discipline. Every decision becomes a battle of egos. Yet danger forces compromise. When bullets fly and traps snap shut, instinct and strategy begin to merge. Slowly, they learn that neither approach works alone. Their escape leads them into contact with Noah Bissett, a highly trained intelligence operative who has been tracking Gradov for years. She reveals the full scale of the conspiracy. With both leaders presumed dead, Gradov plans to manipulate global defense systems, leak classified data, and provoke conflicts between allied nations. War would follow, and from war, he would profit immensely. Derringer and Clark realize that their survival is no longer just personal. The fate of millions depends on them staying alive. Now hunted by mercenaries and betrayed by compromised officials, the three are forced to move in secrecy. Every city feels unsafe, every shadow suspicious. The world they once controlled from behind desks now feels hostile and unpredictable. As they run, hide, and fight, the barriers between the two leaders begin to break down. Away from cameras, they speak honestly for the first time. Derringer admits the pressure of living as a symbol, always performing, always smiling, afraid that silence might make him invisible. Clark opens up about the weight of command, the lives lost under his decisions, and the loneliness that comes with responsibility. In these quiet moments, respect grows. They begin to see each other not as rivals, but as men shaped by different paths to the same burden. As they close in on Gradov's operation, the danger intensifies. Trusted institutions reveal cracks. Old allies turn out to be compromised. The line between truth and deception blurs. Each step forward risks exposure, and every mistake could cost them their lives. Still, they push on, driven by a shared sense of duty that goes beyond politics. The final confrontation is brutal and chaotic. Gradov is not just fighting to escape, but to prove his belief that leaders are weak, divided, and selfish. Facing him forces Derringer and Clark to confront their own flaws. Victory does not come easily. It requires trust, sacrifice, and unity forged under fire. In the end, Gradov's network collapses, and the truth is finally exposed. When the world learns that its leaders are alive, the shock is overwhelming. The return of Derringer and Clark restores stability, but nothing feels the same. Both the men emerge changed. The experience strips away illusion and ego, leaving behind a deeper understanding of leadership. They no longer see power as status, but as service earned through action. The story closes with no grand celebration, only quiet acknowledgement. Two men who once stood on opposite sides of pride and politics now share an unspoken bond. In surviving together, they discover that unity is not born from agreement, but from facing the same darkness and choosing to stand together against it.